Hey everybody, I'm Dan Pierce and welcome to the Cut Block. Today we're going to be talking about the severe flooding that happened in the Comox Valley last weekend, and once again the media and the provincial government are missing the whole story. They're trying to blame it on the rain, but I'm here to tell you this is about more than just rain. It's about more than just climate change. It's also about what's going on the land. But first, let's take a look at what happened on the ground in the Comox Valley, and first and foremost, just the trauma that people who experience these floods are forced to endure.
Filled with emotion and thankful to be on solid ground.
Oh my God, they've just saved my life, my dog's life, my sheep's life.
Stranded homeowners on Headquarters Road in the Comox Valley had to be rescued from fast rising floodwaters.
I've never seen it not start to go down. Like it just kept rising and rising and rising. My sheep were up to their shoulders in the barn and these guys went and got them. I'm just so blown away.
All right, you get the picture there. Severe trauma for people who have to live through these floods. I think it's important to keep that in mind as we move forward with our story and try and get to the bottom of what's really causing these floods. Of course, the weather is part of the picture. There was a lot of rain, and with climate change barreling down on us, we are going to see more and more extreme weather. But like I said, that's probably less than half the story. Now, in order to reveal what's really behind these massive floods happening again and again, and it's really that frequency and that repeated nature of the flooding that we need to pay attention to, we need to go to Google Earth and we need to rewind the clock and look at the historical satellite imagery and kind of move forwards through time. So right now, we're looking at the Comox Valley in 1984. I've dropped a pin right here where the flood zone is. This is the area that flooded. And we've got Comox Lake up here, which is the drinking water source for much of the Comox Valley. I'm going to quickly show you this other map here, which lays out all the water courses, all the streams and creeks that flow through the Comox Valley. It's a slightly different orientation, but you can see all the different waterways in this area. And if I go back over to the Google map, what you'll see is that a significant portion of its river system, including the Solom, the Puntledge, and Browns rivers, originates from and flows extensively through forested mountain slopes. And crucially, much of this visible forest land, especially in the headwaters and around Comox Lake, is privately owned and managed for timber harvesting, with Mosaic Forest Management being a major landowner in these critical watershed areas. And this all goes back to the 1800s and the ENN land grant, which is a much larger story I'll do a video about one day, but for now it's enough to know that these are all forested mountain slopes owned by Mosaic Forest Management. And watch what happens as we step through the historical satellite imagery and move forward through time. Of course, back in 1984 there was quite a bit of intact forest. There was a little bit of logging already happening, but of course as we go through time you see that chipped away. And as we get into the 2000s, what you're about to see here is just a massive acceleration of the logging on the slopes here. I mean, the imagery says it all. I think we all have an intuitive understanding in our bones that when you remove most of the forest cover like this, that's going to do some damage and have an effect on the hydrology. Right? That's going to increase the risk and the magnitude of floods. But let's watch it one more time. I'll go a little bit faster this time. Just watch the forest disappear throughout the 2000s, all through the Comox Valley there. And once again, this is all private managed forest lands owned and logged by Mosaic Forest Products. But there's more. It wasn't just the flooding in Comox. You can see over here, I've dropped a pin on the road to Gold River on Highway 28. There was a washout, and I can show you a video here where the road washed out due to water just gushing off of the hillsides, and an insufficient culvert is sort of what they pinned it on here. But there was just so much water, it overwhelmed the culvert, and it chipped off a giant chunk of the highway into the water. So the BC River Forecast Center, of course, blames it on the cumulative impact of heavy rain. The Ministry of Transportation says that a blocked culvert had caused pooling water on the roadway. But Environment Canada, I guess they didn't get the memo here. They actually put their finger on the truth here, where they said there's a heightened risk of landslides, especially in deforested or recently burned locations. And so now if we go to the Google Earth imagery, I've dropped a pin here where in the approximate location where the washout happened. And of course, what we're looking at now is 1984. There was some logging already going on, obviously, but still lots of dark green on the landscape. And watch what happens as I step through time. See those forests start to get chipped away, more and more logging on those slopes. But watch what happens as we get into the 2000s, and boom. 2007 and 2008, those slopes just get hammered. Right above the Highway 28 washout. I'm not sure if there was a wildfire here that justified these cut blocks, but once again, I'm pretty sure these are private managed forest lands owned and logged by Mosaic Forest Management. And that basically logs the entire mountain in 2 years, and there's not much more left, but you can see over here, like, this is happening everywhere, right? This may not all be affecting this one washout, but you can just see how absolutely devastated the landscape is from all this logging. And of course that 2007, 2008, the entire mountain above that washout area got logged. And of course that has a huge effect on the risk of floods and landslides and droughts. And it's not just me saying this, right? I've worked closely with Dr. Younes Alila from the University of British Columbia, who's done, more than a dozen peer-reviewed studies studying the effects of clear-cut logging on forest hydrology. I'll do another video eventually where I get into all the details of that science, but today it's enough. I'm just going to show you this one study in which his research revealed that clear-cutting has been linked to an 18-fold rise in extreme floods, right? And this is a peer-reviewed study, right? Clear cutting can make catastrophic floods 18 times more frequent, with effects lasting more than 40 years, according to a new UBC study. So yes, even though we plant new trees, right, those trees take decades to grow back, and it takes, more than 40 years. I've heard actually more like 60 to 80 years for the hydrology to actually be restored to its pre-logging functionality, right? In one watershed in this study, these extreme floods also became more than twice as large, turning a once in 70 years event into something that happens every 9. So think about that. The kind of flood that you used to see once in 70 years, now when those giant floods are happening once every 9 years, I mean, just think about the costs on communities and government coffers. Think about the cost to people's lives, that these things keep happening. And this is not just as a result of climate change. It's not just a result of extreme weather. It's also a result of what we've done to the land. The last thing I want to mention here is that it's not just about floods and landslides and droughts. It's also about water quality. And all through the 2010s, I'm sure if you lived in the Comox Valley, you were very well aware they had repeated boil water advisories from turbidity, that's just dirt and soil and mud, flowing off the hillsides and dirtying Comox Lake, meaning that for sometimes months at a time, the people in Comox had boil water advisories. They had to boil their water. They did not have access to clean water. And that is also most likely directly attributable to the extent of the clear-cut logging that I showed you over here. That is not just leading to more floods, but those increased frequency and magnitude of flooding also results in more turbidity in the water, more siltation, more sediment being dragged down and contributing to dirty drinking water. So in order to deal with that problem, the Comox Valley, I believe it was the regional district, had to spend $126 million building a water treatment plant to filter the water that the forests used to filter for them for free. So whenever a flood like this happens, it's important not to just gloss over how these things are happening, what's causing them. We can't just blame the rain. The latest science by Dr. Younes Alila has made this abundantly clear, right? Whenever a flood happens, I encourage you, if you're a journalist or if you're just a concerned member of the public, go to Google Earth, check out the imagery, zoom out, look at the whole watershed, rewind it back to 1984, which is the earliest year that the satellite imagery covers, and just check out what's going on in the watershed. What I often find when I look at these things across BC, wherever floods are repeatedly occurring, invariably you find excessive clear-cut logging all throughout the watersheds of those areas. And I'm on a mission to expose this. I actually made a documentary last year, which was released on the Narwhal. It's called Trouble in the Headwaters. You can go watch the film on my website, headwatersfilm.com. The film itself is embedded right on the website, and you can also go up to the resources section where I have a collection of peer-reviewed science by Dr. Younes Alila, and you can link directly to his latest studies to dive into the details of how clear-cut logging increases the frequency and magnitude of flooding. Thanks for watching. I'm Dan Pierce. This is The Cut Block. If you like what we're doing here, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and if you really want to support my work, go to Patreon and become a monthly subscriber. Thanks so much. See you next time.